Namaskar. On January 10th in Washington, D.C., there was a seminar, Ramayana Across Asia and Beyond. It was organized by HinduAction, and we all know its director, the person who's the face of this organization, Utsav Chakrabarti, and he's going to walk us through what happened, who attended, and also a vision for the world as to how this event sets the precursor and it's going to be leading to many more such initiatives. Now let's welcome Utsav Chakrabarti. Utsav, namaskar. How are you?
Namaste, Sree. Namaste, everybody. Have a good evening. Hopefully, it's evening there.
I can see that you're really busy. But first of all, congratulations for a bang-up job. I saw all the press releases and other things. You've got some very big, luminaries attending this event. You worked very hard for it. And I think our good friend Sehun was the one who was hosting it. So kind of walk us through from when you started prepping for this, when did the idea germinate, what happened, and then where do we go from here? Over to you.
So good question, Sree. So, over the last couple of, I would say at least a year ago, I have been discussing this with other members of the community, Hindu community locally. And, whenever this China versus India and in the entire Asia Pacific region, Indo-Pacific region starts warming up, political issues, geopolitical issues come up. We are always wondering why America's response is extremely transactional and almost tactical in nature. There is no strategic outreach that is visible from the Indo-Pacific perspective. America has its own strategic vision, but it doesn't jive with the strategic vision of the nations in that region. And then, in conversations, we began to slowly hone in on the point that there is a real lack of understanding amongst American think tanks, American policymakers, staffers, and members of Congress that are focused on the Indo-Pacific, which is a huge number, by the way, because America is so focused on that region now. They really lack an understanding of the civilizational natures of these nations. And when I say these nations with a plural S, it's not just India or the Indian subcontinent, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, the overall civilizational identity of that region, but along the entire Indo-Pacific region, like starting from India, starting from Afghanistan, all the way to, Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia, Indonesia, South Korea, Taiwan, and Japan. So all these nations, Americans don't know their civilizational background or how they come together in many ways if you go back thousands of years. And then, at the same time in India, we started hearing the good news about the Ramayana and the Ram temple in Ayodhya slowly coming together. So it dawned upon me, and actually I have to give credit to 𝗤𝙗𝙗, a good friend of mine. So we came up with this thought that, let's focus on Ramayana. That's a civilizational thread that unites Asia in many ways. And for those of our readers, listeners who have some understanding of the region, you will know that more than 16 nations around Indo-Pacific actually have Ramayana depicted in some ways. Even Philippines, which is a Catholic country, by the way, has a depiction of Ramayana, has a large population that identifies with it and depicts it still in its art form and culture. Not to mention Indonesia, the world's largest Muslim country, which has strong Hindu influence of, dating back thousands of years. So we really started with that idea. And, it became a more solid idea when I just did a mental survey going around the Capitol Hill and speaking to a few staffers who are quote unquote China focused. And I asked them, have you heard the word Ramayana? Just in casual conversation. And what I heard, none of them actually knew what Ramayana is. They're like, Rama what? And I'm like, okay, so that's a starting point. And I think the events that are happening in Ayodhya in India in this coming week, and the idea that as America, as a democratic partner of India, as a strategic partner of India, which America is, it is important that American policymakers actually understand the civilizational nature of the region. And that's why we decided to host the event called Ramayana Across Asia and Beyond. And beyond, because it's also not just Asia. I mean, if you go to Suriname, if you go to Mauritius, if you go to Guyana, it's a very powerful socio-cultural and religious identity for those people, especially in Guyana, Trinidad, and all these places. So that's where the event was conceived, and the rest slowly developed. And we thought January 10th, new year, and new calendar year, events happening in Ayodhya in the next week or so. Good time to share some knowledge and learn a
Yes,
few things
indeed.
ourselves.
And you had the ambassadors of Thailand and India grace the occasion. A lot of
Yes.
congressmen and women came. So the atmosphere must have been electric there, because again, you are opening the eyes of many people to things that you and I know for granted. I mean, there is such, jaise 𝙒𝙘𝙤𝙀 𝙁 hai, duniya dekhe nahi. I mean, that's what Kabir's doha. So, this is a civilizational change. And also the fact that Ram Mandir is probably going to have the same, if not more, importance as, say, the Vatican or Mecca. This is the thing that people are probably not yet comprehending. Your thoughts?
So I think, yeah, and in this process of interacting with these people of these nations, especially the diplomatic staff of these different nations, you're right. They understand and identify. Somebody from Thailand, when I was speaking to their staff, they said, "Oh, it's our national heritage." That was the first response I got from anybody from the Thai, diplomatic circle. So for them, it was, yeah, of course we are going to come. It's our national heritage. Our kings, I'm quoting the Thai ambassador here. Our kings, in the last 10 kings that Thailand had, all had the name Ram as the title. So they idealize Bhagwan Shri Ram as the epitome of human idealism and the ideal human character. And so Purushottam, as the Sanskrit word would be. So, and they said, the last Thai king is Rama 10. That's his title. And so, it was a very fascinating journey. I had people from Guyana actually say that, hey, you should have taken 2 more months to prepare and invited all 16 nations ambassadors, because it takes time to have all these ambassadors come together, and it was a very tight schedule. So we got some, but many others could not attend, especially after the new year. It's busy for them. But we also had the Bangladesh embassy sent staff and Guyanese, of course. So yeah, it was a fascinating experience. And to your point about the temple in Ayodhya in India, I think many Indians don't realize this. Even Hindutva people in India don't realize this, that it means a lot to people across Asia and the world. I mean, there are people in Trinidad, there are people in Malaysia and Thailand and Cambodia who are looking up to this event as something that is important. Now, we have done a pretty bad job in sharing the information with them. I must tell you that, because we have to do a better job reaching outside our Indian American so-called communities. But it's still a very important event, and people are we had people from Philippines who came and attended this event, and they were like, "Oh, fascinating, we heard about this, but we never knew what it is." Part of the responsibility falls on us for not having submitted the information.
You bring a very important point out. I was in Trinidad Tobago in 2018, and when I was mingling with people, about 50% of Trinidad is Indian origin. Of course, they have married into the locals, and now they're pretty much assimilated. Yet, many remember India, because we have to remember that they were brought on ships in 1840s. Yeah. 1840s, close to 200 years ago. And there are still temples, there are still pujas happening. There are people who have names, like Shivnarayan Chandrapal, for example, is one name. And the thing about it is that to a man and a woman, they all said they would like to visit India at least once in their lifetime. I mean, see, Trinidad is not exactly first world. It is, I would call, middling. They had a lot of sugar plantations until sugar plantation became an industry, and now they can't afford to grow sugar anymore there. Land is fertile, but they don't know what to do with it. So Trinidad is kind of caught in that cleft. They don't have natural resources. They have their neighbor, Venezuela, which has a lot of oil, but they don't have anything. So anyway, so what my point I think here is that this is just Trinidad, okay? Guyana, and then there is Suriname, which is also having a lot of Indian population. All of the Caribbean islands, there is a fair sprinkling of Indian settlers who came to work in the sugar plantations. And like you said, this is a thing that, yes, this is part of us. This is what we wear. And that feeling that, wow, this is something that we can connect with, identify with, is something that is really, really unique. And I'm hoping that the underserved industry in India, this is tourism, that's going to really take off, because I'm hearing some great talk about, people who have gone there to look at the infrastructure. They've come back gushing about it. Whether it was the recently held Kumbh Melas or in Ayodhya now, people are saying, or even Kashi, they're saying that the facilities are superb, that, you don't have to worry about a lot of things. It's very beautifully done. You can go in and have a very nice time. Everything is very easy to access. No, so Modi government has addressed that main important thing, that usually India's religious places used to be very crowded and dirty. Let's accept it. When I went to Kashi in 1974, I was a kid, but I could see in 𝗤𝙯𝙤 𝗢𝘂𝘁𝘀, I can see bodies being burnt and then just sent down the river Ganges. I've seen it myself. I mean, I used to. The impact is,
in fact, it was normalized.
Yes.
See, the dirt and the smell and all these things, that was essentially the result of neglect and the exploitation, first under the colonial period and then under the different governments in India that were there over the last 70 years. They made it almost a virtue that, of course, Hindu civilizational identity related spaces are going to be smelly and dirty, because that's what it represents. It was like the economic Hindu growth rate, which was like 2% growth rate that Rajiv Gandhi used to, take pride of. So it was intentional. There was an effort made to actually, make it normal, and that actually is changing, and which is a very good sign, and it needed to change, because look at Japan. Japan has a similar civilizational thread as ours, and they took care of it because they were never properly colonized, and they took pride in it in many ways. So I think the fact that India is regaining its civilizational consciousness is going to change the way it looks at its own heritage and the way it looks at places like Varanasi. I mean, it will go through its own cycle of a little caricaturish development and then a more mature development. That cycle will happen. As an architect, I know that when somebody does something new, they overdo it. So we will go through this phase of designing everything a little caricaturish, a little over the top, and then we will become a more mature and settle down entity in all these places. But it's important that we go through this.
Thank you so much. And any ideas on where are we going to build from here about this concept?
So the most important thing that HinduAction is going to focus on is to carry forward this understanding on different aspects. So first was this Ramayana, using Ramayana and making our lawmakers and policymakers understand that there is a civilizational thread across Asia. If America wants to engage Indo-Pacific in the way it does profess publicly, then there needs to be more homework done at our end in Washington, D.C. to approach this civilizational entities, this civilizational thread. And we will be happy to provide that depth of information so that both can understand each other better. And that was the first step. I mean, when all the lawmakers who came, they accepted and highlighted this point that it's important to understand the civilizational nature of this area. And then that will be one of our projects going forward this year. Also, the fact that there is going to be elections, 2024 is a big election year in America and in India. So, as an American organization, we won't be, doing anything about elections in India. We just hope people in India make the right choices, and the progress that is happening right now continues. Yeah. And that's what we hope. But in America, our effort would be to go down to the level of the grassroots and mobilize the grassroots to understand and educate the elected officials or the would-be elected, those who are running for elections, make them understand what we want as a community. And the American Hindu community is more than 5 million strong, and we are incessantly being targeted every day, literally every day. So highlight the positives as well as deal with the negatives, and do it in a manner where, I have to say that there are other Hindu American organizations, advocacy, who are doing the same work that we are doing and who are doing a great job. They've been doing it before us. We will complement them. The places where they are not prominent, the places where they are weak or they need more strength, we are going to go in there. One unique thing that even somebody who was a somebody noticed during our event yesterday was that the members of Congress who came were all from the non-coastal areas where Hindus mostly live. They were from Midwest. They were from, somebody from Illinois, somebody from Kentucky, somebody from Arizona, somebody from Indiana. So they were like, how did you get all these Midwestern lawmakers? Usually it's the California lawmaker or the New York lawmaker who comes, or the Virginia lawmaker who comes. So because we are working on it, we want to engage everybody. And it's important that the work that has been done on the coastal ones, where there are large communities, they are supplemented by the work and the engagement with lawmakers who are in the Midwest. So that's going to be our, going forward.
Wonderful, Utsav. All the best to you, and viewers will be coming with more such stories about Ramayana, Rama, Ram Mandir in the days and weeks to come. And again, through continued this year, this is a very civilizational shift that we are seeing. Being proud of being a Sanatani, that is something that is now beginning to take root even in many countries. I mean, for the most time, we were trying to kind of hide ourselves as thinking that we were not. And I think that standing up with pride for who we are, I think that is what is coming out very, very clearly, shining through. And Utsav, more power to you, bro. And hopefully you'll get the strength to go from here to go on to bigger things. And this is an engaging process, and I'm sure everybody is getting enriched by the experience. Thank you once again. Namaskar.
Namaste.